I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along. I'm glad to have special guests today. Well, first of all, my co-host today is W.D. Foster Graham. W.D. is the book review editor for Insight News. He's a prolific author himself, and always, W.D., I love to have you let people know, your credentials, which you always throw down, right? And you've got a wonderful collection of books that you've written. Take a minute and explain who you are, first of all, and then we'll bring our guest, Bennie Brown, in.
Thank you, Al. Well, I'm W.D. Foster Graham, and I'm the book review editor for Insight News, and I get to be co-host with Al on Thursdays for Book Chat. Um, I am a seven-time published author of the Christopher Family Novel series, which has recently been included in the Givens collection of African American literature. And I am thrilled to introduce our guest for today. I had the honor of meeting her at the Minnesota Black Authors Expo last fall. Bennie Brown, Sister Bennie Brown, is a local author that has written a collection of short stories for children ages 6 to 10. The stories teach Bible lessons and principles through the eyes of the main character, Tamika. Ms. Brown is married and lives in the suburb of Minneapolis, and her lessons learned are based on teachings that expand over 20 years. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Bennie Brown.
Good
Awesome.
afternoon. Good afternoon.
Thank you
So,
and welcome. Well, let's jump right into it. I told WD before, you've written about this author, and let me follow you in engaging this conversation. I'm always excited and curious to meet new people, so I'm glad to be part of the conversation. But tell us what you wrote when you described her work in Insight News.
All right.
uh, when I reviewed the book, wrote about the fact that it's a series of short stories and the central character of 11-year-old Tamika. And each of those short stories was based on spiritual teachings. And it's like teaching about God. And I love the positive role models that Sister Brown established for Tamika and the fact that children learn by example. And so I recommend it for Sunday school classes as well as at home. I know I read to my son every night when he was little. This would have been part of my personal library. And I just see people, parents reading to their children from this book because it's engaging and it is teachable. And above all, God is in the midst. So that was
Great.
part of my review.
Wow.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you. Benny, again, welcome. So you tell us about yourself in your words, about your career and how you came to be an author. So here's the sort of the landscape of the conversation. Want
Okay.
to hear your story on your journey to becoming an author, what you've done in preparation, your school, and where you were raised and your college and stuff, where you've worked, what
Okay.
your profession has been. And I always tell people, I mentioned to you this to you before the program. I'm always wondering whose shoulders we stand on. So I want you to take some time to talk about, the lineage that flows through and to you. And
Mhm.
my curiosity in that kind of a question, Benny, is that I believe that the now that we are in is the particular location and the gateway to eternity, and
Mhm.
that this moment is the latest iteration of the moment of creation, of the beginning of everything, and that
Mhm.
this moment that we're in, through this moment, passes infinity, eternity. So I'll ask you to sort of dream, what your work will produce, not in a generation, but in 10 generations,
Mhm.
for the people that are directly connected to you, but also for humanity. Because I
Mhm.
think that all of us are bringing gifts,
Yes.
and talents, and that we all endeavor to return and answer. the Creator to say we've invested energy and time, and we've multiplied the gifts that we've given to return them to the Creator and to creation. That's what is
Yes.
driving me in my approach to questioning and learning and knowing you. So, with that,
Yes.
talk about you first of all and your
Okay.
story. Mhm.
Yeah, great. That's a great introduction. Thank you so much. I feel like your philosophy aligns with my philosophy, so that's going to make this go very smoothly and aligned. Uh, WD, thank you so much for the review. Um, but I will just start off with there is a big picture, we're all part of this universe. I was brought up in a real small town, so I feel like I've been preparing for this moment for years. I won't tell you how old I am, but this in the small
I
town,
can
we
look at you and tell you about 29, 30, 31,
yeah,
32.
exactly. Good, spot on. Um, so we believed in hard work and doing well in school and attending Sunday school. So again, small southern town, we didn't have a lot of material things, so we read a lot, we played outdoors. And then when it was time for me to move to the big city in Illinois, I had good grades, so that allowed me to get into the high school of my choice. And then so attended this big gigantic high school, maneuvered there, and then kept the same pattern of just believing in education and morals and working hard. And so I graduated with honors, and I was able to go to college, thank God. So I chose the college here in Minnesota, and Minnesota State University, actually. So after college, I moved to Texas, and then after Texas, traveled around as a flight attendant out of the New Jersey airport, Newark, New Jersey. So I'm convinced that my experiences by living in 5 different states and being around different people and dynamics, it made me a well-rounded person. So after all of that, you kind of learn what the pattern behaviors and what the formula is to having a good quality of life. So finally had I wrote the first story actually 20 about 23 years ago. The first story came to me, and I was in the position where I was working um, in corporate America, but at the same time attending church and working with the youth group. And it dawned on me that some of the young ladies did not have a lot of self-esteem. So at that point, I wrote the first story, which was S, and S is for self-esteem. And then finally, after I guess 20 years later, I had time. God intervened and allowed me to write the rest of the stories and compile the stories. And the fact about that was that I wasn't able to go to church. So I spent my time on Sundays writing. We only had one car, and my husband had to go to work. So I spent that time researching and writing the rest of the stories.
Thank you. I,
Yes,
Sister Brown,
yes,
one thing I noted was your quote: "Train up a child in the way they shall go, and when they are old, they'll not turn away from it." And it was in Proverbs.
yes.
So how did that quote, inspire you or motivate you as you wrote each short story?
Yes. So I believe in the basics, that the children, if they're taught basics and they're trained with values and it gets in their hearts, um, it's going to stay with them for the rest of their lives. And again, the quality, of your life is important. So today, finishing the book, within this time period in our life and in this um, time of the world, I think that is so important that we start with the little ones. We start, the book is intended for ages 6 to 10, but I did receive a review from a Cynthia B, and she said, "We love this book. I bought this book for my daughter, but I found that I too needed this." And that's a quote from her. So I believe it kind of transcends, to us adult that may need that little lesson. I can go through each letter of the alphabet if you'd like at this time.
Sure.
Yes.
So just to give you an example, I started with A, and the character is Tamika. She has other characters in the book, but I started with having a good attitude. And then B is believe, C is character, D destiny, E is excellent, F is faith, G is generosity, H is harmony, I imagination, J is joy, K is knowledge, L is love, M is moderation, N is nature, O is obedience, P is patient, Q is quality, R is respect. That's a big one. S, self-esteem. T is thankful. U is understanding. V is victory. W is wisdom. X, that was a tough one, but it's xylophonist. Y is yesterday, and Z is zeal. So there's a story for each one of those words. And through the book, she finds herself, in different situations at school, at home, and on the playground, and then at church. So the characters are a Sunday school teacher. She has some classmates. So each short story, there is a little lesson in there.
Oh, I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
And because I was very engaged when I was reading each
Mhm.
short story. So,
Mhm.
one character that showed up for me with Tamika, can you tell us more about her process with these values in dealing with Scary Barry? If you can
Yeah.
tell us about Scary Barry.
So Scary Barry is her little nemesis. And so I had to make a character that she could interact with to show that when challenges come up, how to deal with those. So Scary Barry was created to make Tamika's life a little bit more challenging. And so he's in the book. He's in the book. Let's see. So she also has a sister and she has a family. So I had to create, the Sunday school teacher. And so each scenario would have the characters that needed to be there and her classmates and things like that.
I have a comment. When
Yes.
you mentioned Scary Barry,
Yes.
it reminded me of one of my favorite characters in another book, one of my favorite authors, and it's in the area of psychology and culture. The author's name was Carlos Castanedas, wrote a series of books called The Teachings of Don Juan and other things
Mhm.
about a shaman's life in
Mhm.
Mexico. But one of the stories he talks, your Scary Barry brought this to me, that people that are developing, that are growing, that are becoming themselves,
Mhm.
uh, you need a, what do you call, a terrantito in your life, a petty tyrant. And so the petty tyrant scares the heck out of you and makes your life difficult and painful and annoys you. But through it all, you just get better. And I bet you that's what Scary Barry does
Yes.
in Tamika's life, right?
Yes. Scary Berry also has, she's able to show empathy to him because she found out later in the book that the reason he was scary. So, and the reason that his behavior was the way that it was.
Mm.
So, so she was able to, like have the empathy and have the patience with him.
Mhm. And she has, so you've got 26 stories.
26, yep, one for each letter of the alphabet.
Amazing. On average, how long is each story? Are these chapters or books each?
They're actually just short stories.
Short
So,
stories.
yeah, so the publisher recommended that they were not long stories. So
Mhm.
they're about a page and a half. So the total book is about 56 pages, which
Okay. Can you read a couple of stories? Which one?
sure,
Just
I would love to. I'd like to read the first one that I wrote,
sure.
which is S, and it goes like this. S is for self esteem. So, Tamika started every Saturday morning with a bowl of cornflakes, piled high with sugar and milk. She was careful not to wake her little sister. She knew that if her sister Tasha woke up, there would be no way she would let her watch the tall ladies with long dresses on TV. Tasha would want to watch those dumb old cartoons. Cartoons are okay sometimes, but not on Saturday mornings. She had waited all week to see the models strut down the runway. Tamika secretly thought, I'm going to be just like them someday. I know I have to grow taller and have to slim down, but I have several years. An hour later, Tasha came downstairs and saw Tamika staring at the TV set with wide eyes and mouth open. Tasha went directly to the TV and turned it off. Tamika immediately snapped out of her supermodel fantasy as Tasha began teasing her. You're too fat to be on TV. Tamika felt bad because she always felt fat, but she knew how to hold back the tears. At school, there were times that Barry would make jokes that hurt her feelings. Tamika was the largest girl, so she was called Miss Piggy, and the skinniest girl, Courtney, was called Olive Oil. Why do I have to go through the torture at home and at school? Tamika thought. I'll show them. Someday I'll be on TV like those beautiful ladies. Sunday morning came early. Tamika woke up thinking tomorrow's school already. Boy, my weekend is over. Back to school, back to teasing. Well, I better get up and get ready for Sunday school. I don't want to be late and have Mrs. Davis mark me tardy. Mrs. Davis had been teaching Sunday school for many years. She had seen so many children come through the church. She knew that all children were good and the best had to be brought out in each one. She believed that each child was an individual person, that God did not make junk. Good morning, Mrs. Davis, said Tamika. Good morning, Tamika. Today we are studying in Genesis. Please read chapter 1, verse 26 and 27. After reading the scripture, Tamika said under her breath, it's right here in the scripture. God created me in his image and accepts me for who I am. At that moment, Tamika received the message that no one has a perfect face or a body. God made each of us different. From that day forward, she vowed that she would not let anyone get under her skin. She thought, the next time they call me fat, I will tell them, God don't make junk. After all, God gave me a talent to sing. When Tamika got home that morning, she told Tasha that she forgave her for calling her fat yesterday, even though it hurt inside. I learned this morning that the way I look on the outside is not as important as the way I look on the inside. Tasha, you are my sister. I love you. Tasha responded, Tamika, I love you, and I will never call you fat again. Tamika had the last word by saying, we are created in God's image. Each of us has a purpose in life. You concentrate on yours, and I will concentrate on mine.
Al, unmute. Oh, wow, that is amazing. These are things that encourage and inspire because think about that God doesn't make mistakes. God
Right.
knew who we were before we were even a thought. And so looking at yeah, think about who can benefit. I think we touched on it just
Yes.
a little while ago. So could you
Mhm.
elaborate on who can benefit from this book, and especially because the teachings they show up that they're inspired, by the word.
Yeah. Yes. So grown-ups, just like children, we get into our places where, for example, self-esteem. We sometimes have a bad attitude. Sometimes, our character's in question when we're in traffic and things like that. So these are just little reminders. I believe that the book is timeless, that it transcends over time and over different demographics. I believe it's universal. I don't believe that teachings need to be complicated. So there's simple, little lessons and principles. And hopefully the message is powerful enough that it'll stay with the child. They'll be able to kind of refer back to what happened um, and relate. They can also read it over and over,
Mhm.
as reminders, because you're probably going to forget. So I believe that's the benefit. You mentioned earlier, Sunday school teachers, um, and then stories at night. Even parents that are homeschooling, I think this would be a good book for them. Christian schools. Um, my vision, though, you guys, is that it become a TV series. I can just see the little characters being acted out on television. So that's my vision. My mission is to distribute the message through short stories that children and anyone can understand.
Well, let me say that I really appreciated what you read. I love what you said and what you did and how you said it and how it came across. It's clear and a wonderful and powerful message. Would you read one more piece, a different one? And so,
Sure.
which letter was that for?
That was S for self-esteem.
Mm.
Okay, and
Do you have another one in mind that you'd like to read?
well, WD, if you got one in mind, what do you think? I'm trying to think of something that's different from that because I want to see how they all get to the same place
Okay,
and
so yep,
deliver
that was
in delivering a message.
Yeah, S is at the end of the book, isn't it? So without giving it away, I could read. Let's see, because these are different scenarios,
Mhm.
and then the very last one is zeal. So that kind of wraps it up. If you'd
Mhm.
like to hear that one.
Sure, please.
Okay. All right. Z is for zeal. Praise with enthusiasm, sing with enthusiasm, and move with enthusiasm. Those are the parts we need in order to make the Christmas play. So this is kind of the holiday one. Um, we must have enthusiasm, says Mr. Brown, the music teacher. Lots of zeal. Tamika thought to herself, I thought I had enthusiasm. The name of the play was Jesus Was Born, Jesus Lived, Jesus Died. The narrator, Simone, read about how Jesus was born into the world and paused to ask the question to the audience: why do you think you were born? Do you have zeal and passion in your life? The play explained how Jesus was born into the world as a poor infant, but he ended up saving the world. The message that sometimes you may have undesirable circumstances, but can change the world. The play demonstrated that it was the in between and the way Jesus lived that made the difference. Simone continued to read. He was born into the world in a manger. Around the age of 12, he sat, taught, and listened to the teachers in the temple. At the age 33, he sought at John the Baptist and baptized him in the river of Jordan. Tamika's class performed at the end of the play. Their parts were to enter the scene and dance across the stage with enthusiasm and zeal. They had the most important parts because it was expressed that when Jesus rose from the dead. Tamika was happy at the end. She was excited to have a part that was joyful and positive. Across the room, Barry was not happy. He was thinking to himself, why should I have zeal? My dad is not here, and I won't even see him for Christmas. Tamika danced over to Barry and said, Barry, why are you looking so sad? Tamika felt in her heart that Barry was sad because his dad was not there. As they stood in silence, Simone read loudly, Go there and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. At that moment, Tamika knew that she had to encourage Barry by showing love and compassion, as Jesus would have done. She made a promise to herself to live full and pleasing life for her Creator. She vowed that she will praise God on Sunday and keep the Spirit throughout the week by celebrating victory for wisdom, recognizing yesterday, and doing things with zeal.
Amazing. That's wonderful. WD, what do you think?
I mean, from A to Z, these stories, as you said, they're simple, but they're powerful in getting the message across. So that being said, in your book, you talk about Tamika's role models, like her parents, as well as her Sunday school teacher. Tell us about your role models, the people who made such a positive difference in your life.
Yes, I feel that I've
Let
been
me
very
interject.
blessed.
Are you
Yes,
Tamika?
no, well, that's a good question. Um, there were two Tamikas in my youth group, so I
Okay.
picked that name
Okay.
because I wanted the African American name. Because
Hmm.
at the time, when I did research, there were not many African American characters at
Mhm.
that time. Now, since then, there's been a flood of African American books. Um, Al, I've never thought of it that way. You really brought out a question that I've never thought about. But when I look back, it may be the alter ego me, Tamika. So, yes, growing up in all these different situations. So, that's really interesting. So, yes, I've been blessed with wonderful role models,
Mhm.
all the way from my aunt that raised me in Arkansas, um, strong mother, um, and just people around me. School teachers. I'm thinking back on pastors and youth groups. I believe in small groups. I believe that that's where you grow and you learn. I believe in Bible study. I currently attend Sanctuary Covenant Church, and our pastor is just strong, and I really respect him.
Over
How
on
he's
Broadway?
able,
On Broadway?
yes, yes, he's able to bring people together, and just the love that we pour out to the community. So I've just been blessed to be around all types of people, young, old. um, I pull from the young, technical things, and get wisdom from the older people, um, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful to have that a set of strong individuals in your life.
Well,
Yeah,
let me ask you, talk about growing up you were born in Arkansas, you said, right?
I was raised in Arkansas.
Where were you born?
I was born in Illinois, Chicago, Illinois,
And then raised in Arkansas.
and then back to Chicago. Yeah,
And
so
what
you can
were your
kind of get an
age?
idea.
Yeah, what's the age range in Arkansas?
Arkansas was from like first grade to about the ninth or 10th
Okay.
grade. Hmm.
So you pretty much had coming to an awareness of your own identity in that period of
Yeah.
time by the time you finished ninth grade, right? You,
Yes.
you were focused on where you wanted to go. You said earlier that you were good in school and that you knew that you had and would accomplish things, and you were focused on doing that, and that allowed you to be to have a choice in the quality of high school that you chose, and also in your advanced education when you came to Minnesota. Uh, Let me ask you, what was the world like when you were in first and second grade? How would you describe the world itself? Let me say, for me, if I ask myself that question, I would say that in the first and second grade or third grade, uh, all I knew was the community that I lived in, which was a Black community in Kansas City, Missouri, where I grew up. Uh, and that the highlights of growing up were that I had, my cousins and sister that were older than me, and some that were younger than me, and some neighbors. And that I remember when we went to school from where I lived to the school was like 12 blocks, right? And so 3 or 4 people, like my sister, me, and the next door neighbor, and my cousins lived downstairs, would start off. And by the time we got to school, going 7, 8 blocks, our group had swelled to about 15 or 20 because there was a different kid on every other block, and they'd wait till we get there. So we'd come in as a swarm and then leave the same way. And people that maybe lived beyond me would keep on going another block or two to their house. But to me, that meant that the world was really a wonderful place where I had cousins and brothers and sisters and friends and moms and dads, uncles, aunts, people that were in, teachers that lived around the corner, you know, preachers around the corner, businesses owned by our people in the neighborhood. So it was a pretty cool place in general. The exception was that what you see on television that was incongruent with the peace you felt and the protection you felt. What do you mean? Well, when you see stuff about not Medgar Evers, but back then it was Emmett Till. I think I was maybe in the 6th grade when Emmett Till got killed, and I saw that story in Jet magazine. And there might have been some things before that that were civil rights kind of oriented, and that talked about the conflict between our people and them, the overall society. But outside of that, I didn't deal with any of that. I dealt with how uh, insulated and therefore wonderful and caring our neighborhood was. What was your world like when you were a kid?
Yeah. Wow, Al, that's interesting. So I my world was basically the same except for it was diverse. So we were so in my grade school there were only 7 African American kids in the whole grade school,
Mm-hmm.
but it was all fine. We didn't experience racism. It was a community. And then so I kind of had 2 parts. I had when I went to school, there was one set of race, and then at home I had a community where there was another set of race. But the kids, we all played together. We had a big yard, and everyone came to our house to play. And so like I said, it was small, so everybody knew everybody.
What
And
town? What town is it?
it's called Hot Springs National Park. So it was
How
Hot
far
Springs
how
near
far from
Little
Little Rock?
Rock. Yeah, about 40 miles from
Okay.
Little Rock. Yeah.
And this is all in the post. Is it Orville Faubus? Is that his name? Governor Faubus was his name. Orville
Maybe.
Faubus was the guy that
Yeah, that name sounds familiar.
stood on the
Yes.
Yeah.
steps of Central High School in
Yes.
Little
Oh,
Rock.
yes. Yes. It was after that. Yep.
That
It was
governor.
after
Okay.
that. Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
then he closed all the
Um,
schools in the state.
yeah, it was after that. So the closest thing that I remember is when Dr. King was assassinated. So that
Okay.
happened. I was in the 4th grade, I
Okay.
believe.
Okay.
So that was traumatic for the South. But
Mhm.
our town was a community. It was a positive community. I didn't appreciate it at the time, the mountains and the water it was a tourist town.
Mm.
And I did remember saying, whenever we did drive somewhere, we didn't go anywhere. We didn't have a car. So we walked to school. And, but when we did get outside of our, few little blocks, I do remember looking at the haves and the have-nots.
Mhm.
You could tell the divide and the difference,
Mhm.
even though you didn't really dwell on it, but it was there. It was there. And so we spent our time, church. It was
Mhm.
mostly church. It was school. We participated in school, activities, and that was my world. And then after that, when it was time for me to leave that world, I had to move to Chicago and live with my mother in and I attended a huge gigantic high school. So that was totally different. It
So,
was
so you
it
were
was
with your grandparents in Arkansas?
I was with my aunt.
Your aunt, okay.
Yep.
What
So
kind of what kind of household was that?
yeah, it
You
was
and
my aunt and my cousins. That's right, my
okay,
cousins. Yeah.
okay.
So I was
Older than
raised
you, or
with
younger
them.
than you, or same age as you, your cousins?
I was right in the middle.
You're in the
Yeah.
middle. So
Yeah.
you, the three of
Yeah.
you, three.
Three girls. So
Okay,
those are my closest relatives. And
okay.
yep. So they're kind of like sister
Were,
cousins.
yeah, kind of like
Yeah.
triplets, I bet. Triplets
Mm.
Yeah.
almost.
Sister cousins. Yeah.
Hmm.
So we were all two years apart, and so grew up together.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're wonderful. I mean, it's just wonderful family. Someday I will return there. When I retire, when I leave Minnesota. This was a great winter, but some of them aren't so good.
That's
So
right.
we are, yeah.
True.
So it'll be a big circle. I'll go back there and retire. But then, meanwhile, so
So
there
what
was,
did
yeah.
your aunt and uncle do? How'd they make their living?
Yeah, my aunt. Oh, that's an interesting question. She ended up retiring when I was during and helping raise me. But
Mhm.
before that, she worked on the bath. If you've ever heard of the bathhouse row in Hot Springs, the hot springs water. She
Mhm.
worked in one of the bathhouses.
Okay.
And interesting enough that you asked, a few years ago, we went to a reunion, and they've since converted those bathhouses into like hotels and restaurants.
Hmm.
So I got to eat at oh, you're gonna make me cry. I got to eat at the bathhouse that she worked in, and that was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Mm.
Explain
So
explain the bathhouse. I'm thinking, here's what I think a bathhouse, where you have natural springs. That's like a
hmm
natural phenomenon,
yep,
right? Hot water. So
yes,
people go to there because they believe and they
yes,
experience
that's
healing,
exactly what it
healing
was.
properties. And those
Hmm.
are kind of known all over Europe. We're not all over, but
Yes.
where they exist, people
Hmm.
know and treasure and use them. That's going
Hmm.
back ancient times, right?
Yes,
The
yes,
healing power of warm, natural spring water.
yes. So
So
people used to come, yeah, all over the
yeah.
world.
So
Yeah.
they built up businesses, right? Or
Hmm.
places where people could probably pay for a day or half a
Hmm.
day
Yeah.
and sit in the water and camp
Yeah.
around. That how it worked?
Exactly. And there was a whole street. Like if you Googled it today, if
Hmm.
you Googled Bathhouse Row, Hot Springs National Park, you'll see this row. So there
Hmm.
were about seven of them,
Hmm.
and she worked in one.
Hmm.
And but she retired probably after, during the time I was there. And
And did Black people use the resource as well? How was it organized? Was it
well,
open to
it was the
everybody, or was
have
it
and the have not. So the people
Mm.
that could afford it used it.
okay?
Yeah. So
Okay.
just knowing that and knowing and being able to go back there,
Hmm.
and sit and eat there meant so much to me. Yeah.
I can appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
are the springs still in existence today?
There are water. Yeah, there's water there. We took a tour, and there is the concept of the healing water. It's still there, but they don't have it as a industry anymore. Where people come to take the
Mm.
bath. So
Mm.
yeah.
So tell us something. Now, you went to Minnesota University
Yes, so Mankato.
in
So at the
Mankato.
time, yeah, it was Mankato State University.
Mm,
But I went to high school in Chicago, and then from there, so I did meet a wonderful counselor that attended school in Minnesota. So she recommended it, and off I went from Chicago to Mankato. So that was like the third level of education, and so it went, one demographic to a major different demographic to a different demographic. So that's why I feel I've met all sorts of people in my life.
I can appreciate that. What was your experiences in college?
Well, college, you just kind of jump in thinking, you're at the bottom of the totem pole again. Even though I graduated with honors in high school, you go to college and it's just a totally different world, just like the show. But still learning more about people, new friends. Studying, the grades did were not there once I got to college. It was just I had to really, really work hard to graduate. So I was on the 5-year plan, but at the same time, you're learning people and building relationships, that we still have today. And just learning about, that's where the life comes in. So that's where you're making your mistakes, and you're wishing you had a book called ABCs of Life. And um, but it was a good experience. It was a positive experience, because after that, traveled Texas, New Jersey, and I came back to Minnesota because I love the state. I do love the state of Minnesota. The good, the
Were you,
bad, everything.
were you in Mankato with was Dr. Fagan there already? Was he on
Yes,
staff when
he
you were there?
was, Al. He
Dr.
was
Michael
on
Fagan?
staff. Yes, yes. You're familiar with Mankato State, then, yeah.
I am. Well, I lived in a town called Worthington, Minnesota,
Yes,
and Worthington is further south of Mankato.
yes.
And when a town of 10,000 people, 81 of whom were black,
Mm-hmm.
13 of whom were in my family, my mom and
Mm-hmm.
dad and my sisters and brothers, so 14 of us. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that was a small town, a white town, and
Yes.
a big deal for us was to go to Mankato.
Yeah.
Or go
Yeah.
to Mankato or go to
Yeah.
Marshall to the college
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
or to go to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So I
Yes.
really understand rural
Yes.
Minnesota and small towns,
Yeah.
which leads me to the question.
Hmm.
I want to talk about Dr. Fagan because he did
Yeah.
pioneering work in Black consciousness and Black history, brought in a lot of people over a series of years who
Yes, he did.
were national, international luminaries, leading lights, thought leaders, activists
Yes.
in a series of Pan-Africanist
Pan
panels
African
at,
Conference.
at Mankato. But I wanted you to talk about the differences you discovered from being in a sort of a non-segregated environment in Arkansas. You
Hmm.
described where you were in a school where you were one of
Hmm.
7 or 8 black kids in
Hmm.
a school,
Hmm.
and you navigated that, fully.
Hmm.
Then
Hmm.
you went to Chicago and you were in
Hmm.
a black environment, right?
Yes, yes, that
So
is correct.
here's my story. When my brothers and sisters grew up, my 2 youngest brothers and sisters were born in Worthington, but all of them under me kind of went to school in Worthington, high school and grade school and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
then when my dad's job that brought him to Worthington uh, from Kansas City, when they opened a plant again in Kansas City after 10 years, they moved back. So my brothers went to the black school that we would have gone to in Kansas City.
Uh-huh.
And they tell me this is maybe my exaggeration, but you tell me what it sounds like to you. They walking down the hall in either Lincoln High School or whatever it's called, and just ordinary energy,
Hmm.
junior high school kids. And one of them says, "Hi, how are you guys?" And it's like the whole room, the hallway stops because nobody in that neighborhood says hi. Number one,
Oh,
you say hi,
yeah,
you don't say
yeah,
hi,
yes.
and you don't say how are you doing. You
Hmm.
say how you doing,
Hmm.
and so their accent, their voices, let everybody know that they weren't part of the neighborhood.
Yeah,
So the other
yeah,
people in school, they said this might be a joke. They said once they opened their mouth up, the guys came up to them and said, "Empty your pockets, because we take
yeah,
we taking your lunch money.
yeah,
You don't belong here." So they had to fight to integrate and to be safe in
yeah.
the community that their parents, went to. But that was due to them having a different experience in white Southern Minnesota. Now that's
Yes.
my story. What's your story? Going
Yeah.
from an integrated community to an all-black community, and then back to
Right.
Mankato too.
Right. So I don't feel like the way I fit in was that I gravitated towards the like-minded kids.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what how I survived. So everyone that was in the National Society and the book clubs and the those type of groups is where I fit in. So I
Mm-hmm.
just got in where I fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I survived and like I said graduated with honors. I didn't realize it at the time. You just kind of do what you're supposed to do, but then when you look back you're like, oh wow, I accomplished something that
Mm-hmm.
was, you know that you don't even think about. We had our reunion, I won't say what year, but we had our high school reunion in August, and it was just so great to go and see people that went to high school with, and I still have some relationships, some long
Mm-hmm.
lasting relationships from that. But I didn't venture out too far from school home. We didn't. Back then it was considered a very um, not prestigious, but it was a considered a good high school.
Mm-hmm.
So you know today I don't know how I would have survived, but then it was totally different.
So, in the two stories you read, I think both of them made references to biblical teachings and
Yes.
lessons.
Hmm.
Uh, what's your relationship? You obviously have a great relationship with the Bible and with Christianity and with God, and explore that. And how does that both guide you, and how is it using you to produce and to deliver on the mission? You
Hmm.
described the mission. I'll ask you to describe it again. But
Okay.
what is your familiarity with the word, the Bible, the teachings of the Bible, the story, and the understanding of the mission of good news
Hmm.
and redemption that Christianity offers? How does all that flow into you and through you and come out in your work?
Yes, I think that it is the good news. So I've been able, I know that, there's times you have different times in your life. You have different chapters in your life. So when you're raising children and going through, you go to church, you're working at church, but you don't really get to, you know, unless you really put a lot of time in it, you don't really get to grow
Mhm.
as fast as you can when all of those things are over and done with. So I've been able to attend Bible study, and we're working on John right now. So we're getting to relive the good news and
Mhm.
how it connects to the Old Testament. That it all started back with Dave, in the lineage of David. That he's going to come. There will be a savior.
Mhm.
So John walks through what happened, with the disciples and that type of thing. So um, it's been great just studying the Bible, and I believe in one true thing that is here to help all of us, and it's called the Holy Spirit. So
Mhm.
it's the Trinity, the God, the Son, the Holy Ghost. So if we live and kind of tune in and can hear the Holy Spirit, we'll be able to live out our purpose. And it's a journey. So it requires, and this is one thing I love about our church, it requires, we have 5 pillars. You grow, you invite, you connect, you serve, and give. And if you can, just do those 5 things on a regular basis, God will put things in your life. He'll put all that goodness in your life, and then you'll be able to just live it and listen and be obedient, and all those good things will come.
So true.
Timing.
So true.
Yeah.
So,
Let me shout out Sister Michelle, who joins us from out east, and she says, Sister Bennie Brown, your story is fascinating. Thank you, Michelle, for your note. And let me invite anybody else that's online. Let us know where you are, tell us who you are, and give us your comments on this interview and any of the topics we're talking about, either a question or an observation or a story. Drop it in the comment section here. We want to engage with you. Michelle, we thank you for always checking us out and supporting the program. And we want people to know that, we're streaming this program live across the several platforms, the YouTube Black Press USA channel, the Insight News YouTube channel. We're also streaming this on LinkedIn. We're streaming it on Twitter, now X, and we're streaming on 3 different Facebook platforms. So you may be watching us or connecting on any of those platforms. And if you are, just leave a comment wherever you are, and tell us who you are, shout yourself out, your town out, or ask a question of Bennie or of WD or of me. And thank you. What we really want you to do is also go to the YouTube Insight News MN channel and become a subscriber. There's a subscribe button, hit it, like and share. Subscription doesn't cost you anything, but it helps us grow our community. We're north of 600. Our goal is to get 1,000. And every subscriber moves us one step closer in that direction. So if you're listening, or if you're watching this later, because once these shows air, they're available for sharing. Share this with your friends. If this story is a story that reminds you of something, reminds you of yourself, your growing up, your aspirations, your challenges, and your overcoming, this is a great story. Sister Bennie Brown, your story is wonderful. Just the telling that you're doing, but also what you have produced in this series of lessons that really, as you say, ought to be on television. And maybe your television producer is watching right now,
Yes.
and we'll be connecting with you to move your vision into that reality. But you also are laying the building blocks for the future for our people, and that's a wonderful thing. So viewers, listeners, thank you for viewing and listening. Support us by subscribing, sharing, liking, helping us grow our presence on this platform. Do you have a social media platform or presence, Bennie Brown?
I do. I have a website, which is www.booksbybennie.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then I am also on Instagram. So since I have time now, I do plan on posting content. I have time to really promote this book. You guys have been great today. It's been wonderful to have this conversation with you. I also want to add a big thank you to the people in my life, in my world.
Yes.
And that would be my husband, Tony, for he believes in me. And then my son, Jonathan, who listened to the first story. And he said, Mom, did you write that? And that gave me encouragement to continue on. And then I have a couple of stepsons that I love, and they love me. So it's great to be admired and have family. So just want to tell them.
Well,
Mhm.
and you deserve to be admired just from what I've
Thank
learned
you.
about you today. So
Thank
that's
Indeed.
you.
wonderful. We're not done yet. I still want to go back into
Oh,
family. Like
okay.
your what do you know about your ancestors? And
Oh,
do you
yeah.
see yourself at okay? I see myself as an African person or African American,
Hmm.
or I've described myself as an African in the New World. I was at a journalist conference in Jamaica, and a guy named Professor Rex Nettleford, who was like just a brilliant thinker and philosopher and teacher in Jamaica at University of West Indies. He's one of the conveners of this event. And in one of his speeches, he talked about we are Africans in the New World. I'd never heard that before. Never heard it described as that. So I said, I
Hmm.
like that. So I present myself now as I'm an African in the New World, an African in America, but I'm an
Hmm.
African man. And so
Hmm.
I can be African and I can be American, and one doesn't exclude the other. I'm
Hmm.
also
Yeah.
Black, but I'm also Irish because my lineage goes back to Ireland
Hmm.
on my
Hmm.
father's side. You know,
Hmm.
I'm also from Missouri. I'm
Hmm.
also Jamaican because my father is
Hmm.
Jamaican. I'm also Cuban
Mhm.
because he was born in Cuba. So you can
Yeah.
be many things, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's
And,
true.
Yes.
and that's what the beauty of life is. But
Yes.
what about you? How do you look at your lineage and ancestry?
Yeah.
You do or not? Maybe you don't. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think a few years ago I decided to join the ancestry and
Mhm.
found out, I mean, it's a true thing. And so they tell you who's part of your DNA, and they tell you where you're from. So I believe that my tribe is African. It's a Cameroon tribe.
Hmm.
I would love to explore the Native American side more.
Hmm.
So we'll see if there'll be any type of data that'll show up in those records. But I feel the same way, Al. So I do believe that I am from Africa. With I believe that there I do also know, but I'm not sure how. But there is Native American too
Hmm.
in our family, and we have a family reunion coming up, so I plan to learn more about that also.
What's been the impact of travel? Where did you travel? Was your travel as a flight attendant just in the U.S. or did you travel abroad as well?
I did get to travel abroad. Paris, France was one of my lines
Hmm.
uh, a few decades ago, so that was fun. I've been to Mexico several times, and I had a line that went to Ottawa, Canada,
Hmm.
and that was really interesting because I love that country. That too bad it's so cold, but the food and the atmosphere was I just loved it. I loved it. I want to go again.
What did you like about travel and what discoveries did travel provide to you?
Oh yeah. Well, just it's like an encyclopedia in person, so
Hmm.
you get to see things, and we've been blessed. My husband and I have been able to go to a lot of different cities and states, mostly vacation spots, but we've been able to do that together, and that's been um, so over the last 15 years. So that's been one of the bright spots in my life, to
Hmm.
be able to travel and see things. And
Awesome.
yeah, you read it in the history books, and then you get to actually see it. So that's very, very cool. Yeah.
I did have a question here because, like I
Yes,
said,
sir.
you have an amazing story,
Hmm.
definitely, as one of the persons who viewed.
Yes,
Well, you talked about vision and mission.
yes, sir.
Um, One of my mentors told me once, follow your passion and your gifts will make room for you. So, Sister Benny Brown,
Yes,
what is your passion?
yes. Well, my passion is writing. My passion is giving back to those little people, those little minds, those little hearts, to try to instill the importance, so that when they see themselves, so that they can think think to the future, of what their future will look like. So I believe it's children. It really is. My passion is the things that maybe I didn't learn, maybe they can learn, or giving back, and um, just trying to let them know that life can be peaceful and have a good quality of life. That's
Well,
my
Amen.
passion.
that's going to be the mic drop. We're at the end of the hour. It goes so quickly.
Yes.
The book is ABCs of life stories of Tamika. The author, Bennie Brown. Bennie, so good to meet you and to have you on the program today. And we want to have you back again and again just to talk. This is a great conversation. WD, thank you for curating and writing about and promoting this book in Insight News and this show as well. I'm Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. Take care.
My pleasure.
All
Happy
right.
Easter. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy Easter.